Hi, and welcome back to the Indusoft Web Studio video training series for version 7.1. In this video, we're going to talk about troubleshooting and deploying an Indusoft Web Studio project. So, what should you do? What should you look for when you're troubleshooting and getting ready to deploy your application? First of all, I'm not going to go into a ton of great detail in this particular video just to keep it a reasonable size. We do have a webinar video that we covered some troubleshooting practices and best practices on our website. So feel free to take a look at that. It has some really great content in it and goes into a lot of good detail. Don't forget to use the help system when you're looking for how a particular function works or feature works. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So let's go into Indusoft Web Studio. Some things in the help system. So first of all, here under help, we can, under the contents, go to this troubleshooting tab. And in this troubleshooting tab, we have some general troubleshooting. Checking out the documentation. We do have some information on our website available. There's also some documentation that comes either on the DVD or it can be downloaded from the website. Such as VB script reference manual, sample applications, communications examples, things of that nature. Also, if you're having problems and they just started happening, consider recent changes to hardware or software that may have been installed. Sometimes they can affect performance and just overall functionality of the PC. Try reproducing any problems in a new file. Sometimes things can get overly complicated if you have a lot going on, and sometimes it makes sense to just copy that little piece out and put it in its own application and build enough functionality around that to make it work. And sometimes that can help you isolate some individual issues. If it still has the same problem and you're pretty sure it should be working, there's a chance that you should try it on another PC. There's Indusoft Web Studio is available as an evaluation version, so if you install it on a new PC, it will develop for 40 hours and run for 2 hours continuously before you have to restart it. So that gives you the opportunity to try it on another PC, just in case you suspect something's wrong with the particular PC that you're on. Don't forget to verify the project. We'll talk a bit about that, and it's always good to do at the end before you finally deploy your application. It checks versions, it cleans up any problems, any missing tags. If you deleted lines or big chunks of tags out of the tag database, it neatens that up and makes it just a little bit more tidy of an application. Let's see here more in the help system. The contents is a way that to find this based on find items based on the subject matter, so you can drill into that. Also here in the index, this is not a search. This list that we have here, for example, if we wanted a particular command, let's say format command, I can type in format and the entire list is still there. It doesn't change how this list is populated. It just jumps us right to that particular line. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to do a search for the particular thing that we're looking for. Let's type that all out. Format. We can see here that the format, there's a few different ways to use that as well. One of the things that I pointed out during the scripting training for the built-in scripting language, it's nice to be able to find scripting functions using these different categories that we've put them in, but an alternative way to find those is a list of available functions. And if we scroll down to list of available functions down here, when we display those, it displays in a list that contains all of the built-in scripting language functions, and you can see what they're supported, what their execution, and very nicely you can use the Control F, which is a standard find function, and use find to try to find what you're looking for. Maybe it's a string type command, maybe it's a whatever command. If you're not quite sure what you're looking for, you can use that to help you find different functions. Let's see, moving on. As far as doing some basic troubleshooting, Database Spy is a great tool to use. Now, not only do you have the Database Spy here in the development environment, but when you're connected to a remote station, you can use the Database Spy here to connect to a remote station just via its IP address. So that's a second way to use Database Spy. And a third way to use Database Spy is, if you remember when we run the project, you can also have a runtime version of Database Spy. Now when we do that, we don't have to exit the runtime, and you might want to actually add whatever particular security you would need to make sure maybe operators don't get into this, but maintenance people can, or the appropriate people can. And notice that it's also available with security on it. And so here we can get into the runtime version of Database Spy. Also remember that you can right-click on this title bar and say Always on Top, and that way it'll stay floating even though you're clicking on buttons in the project. It won't lose the focus of Database Spy. In addition to Database Spy, there's also a runtime version of Logwin, which we put on our project here. And then there's also a remote version of Logwin. And there's also this output window, which is what we call Logwin in the development environment. Now, related to Logwin, let me go back on Database Spy before I move on. In Database Spy, remember that you can not only put tag names in here, but you can also put expressions in here. So if you have maybe a complicated object or a complicated built-in script that you're trying to use on a screen, or on an object, and it doesn't seem to be behaving properly, you can always put that script in this tag expression field and try to do some troubleshooting to see if your logic is working properly. Maybe it's not changing the color that you think it is supposed to be changing, but when you put the function in here and you're not returning the right value, sometimes the problem becomes apparent by using this as a tool. Also remember here that you have 4 different tabs that you can segment however way you want to. You can put maybe automatic mode functions in here, or manual mode functions in here, or maybe you have different zones, or an unload part of the machine, or the process, or different parts of the process. You can segment those up however you would like to do those. Okay, so now over to the output window. Don't forget that you have here under settings, you have all these different checkboxes that you can check. Just a couple of things to point out here. It's when you're doing database messages in here, you only see the errors when you're using this output window. You do have the ability to go to your taskbar and right-click on the Studio Database Gateway and uncheck the Hide button here. And now you can see certain commands that maybe not necessarily just errors only. You can see all database messages, so that can help you do some troubleshooting in there as well. Some other things that you can do is include trace messages. Trace messages are a function that you can put anywhere in your scripting language. You can even put them with the $sign in front, the trace function, into a VB script. So if you're not sure if your logic is jumping you to the right place within a script, you can put a message, I am here now, or I'm at step number 1, now I'm at step number 2, and have that come out in the output window and see where you're at, kind of help you troubleshoot where you're at in script. Let's see. Also, the other thing is it's really good to put in date and time. So just check that checkbox for date and time, because that will give you a clear understanding as all the way down to the millisecond as what order functions are happening in. And don't forget here that you can log tags. If you've got some tag names that may or may not be changing the right values at the right time, just add them in here and see sequentially how they're happening, or is it missing something, or is something getting skipped that you anticipate happening. So there's some good troubleshooting ideas related to that. Also, don't forget that tags. Let's hang on. Let's go back here to the presentation. Cross-reference. Let's take a look at the cross-reference. So, for example, if we have a tag here that's oh boy, let's see. We added. See, these are all Boolean. Let's go to all tags, and we added some tags. Maybe now there's a lot of tags in here because we imported from the OPC. So let's say temperature. Where is that temperature tag located at? So once we have this here in this particular field, we can click on the cross-reference, and down here in the output window there's this cross-reference tab that will open up. We can see that the temperature tag, when this returns here, where it was used, and we can double click on any of those items in the output window. So for example, here it's used in the alarm body, row 1, column 1. I can double click on that, and it will open that up and show me the two different spots that it was used at. I can show it on this particular screen. It's used on the alarm screen. Now also notice that when I double click on that, not only is it selecting the object, but it's also opening up the properties and showing me where that is used as well. Here it's used in the symbols screen, so I have it there tied to that particular slider. So that's a real quick way to jump to where a particular tag name has been used. While we're here, let's take a look at properties, and let's not forget about the properties or the fields that are associated with individual tags. We showed those in the help system when we were talking about the tags very early on in this video training series. We can also go here under contents, tags, and there is, let's see, tag properties, list of tag properties. And if you remember, we can get at those tag properties via the minus greater than sign. And you have all these different properties associated with all the individual tags. For example, timestamp, the min and max values down to the bit level. We also have something good to bring up is the ability to do the limits for individual alarms. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that you don't need to create individual tags for those alarm limits. Those are stored as properties of the individual tags. So that can save you a whole lot of tags in your project. Now, another way to get at this list, kind of a cheat sheet list, is anytime you have an object that allows scripting, or wherever any of the scripting interfaces are. For example, I'm just going to put a button here on the screen, changes to VB script. I can use a tag, let's say $temperature, and once I do that, I can do the minus greater than, and now here it will show me a list of all the tag properties that you can get at. So that list is available here. And if you just want a quick way to remember, oh, it's timestamp, not time date stamp, or some way, maybe just want to check the spelling of it. It's high or high limit. It's not HIGH, it's HI limit. So that gives you a quick way to find those rather than maybe navigating through the help system. Oh, let's see. What are some other things? Also regarding driver communications, there's a lot of different things regarding driver communications. If you have a driver installed, there's always a good thing to do is check the status. The read and write status, the read complete and the write complete, you should always be monitoring those to see if you don't have good communications. Some things that you can do is here under the project tab under viewer, you can show question marks when the quality is not good. So if you're not getting a good value back from the PLC, do you want to show the last value that was in the tag, or do you want to show question marks? That's your choice and how the project behaves and what best fits your particular application. Another good thing to note is always check to see if you have the latest driver from the Indusoft website. One of the things that you can do is if you go to add remove a driver, you can see here in the list the different versions that are installed in your particular instance of Indusoft Web Studio. You can go to the Indusoft website and compare that against the versions that are on the website and see, do I have the latest version? What changes were made? Do I need the latest version before you deploy your application? Also, when checking quality in a driver, don't assume that 0 means good quality and non-zero means bad quality. Different things, for example, in OPC, you might not have 0 for good quality. I don't remember the exact error codes, but for other particular items, quality is not necessarily 0 for good and non-zero for bad, so double check that. For doing some simple troubleshooting, use ping. For example, if we go to the command prompt and I was to try to ping myself here, 127.0.0.1, if I just issue a standard ping command, I'll get 4 responses, and that might be not enough to try to troubleshoot. There are some switches associated with the ping command, and I think I can get to those via /?. I can see that there's some variations of ping. Now, for example, one that I find helpful is this -T. It keeps going until you stop it with a Control-C. So if I just use the up arrow here and I go back to this and I add the -T at the end of it, this will keep pinging until I tell it to stop. So it's not just the 4 retries. So I might be able to plug and unplug cables and move some things around and realize, oh, I didn't have this plugged in, or this wasn't connected right, or this switch wasn't powered up, or router wasn't powered up. Once I do that, then I might start to get a ping and get a reply, and then I can just hit Control-C and stop that. Some other things, if you think you might have duplicate IP addresses on a network, try removing the device, and if you ping it and it still replies, well, if it's not plugged in, then there's something else on the network that's got that same IP address, and that'll help you do some troubleshooting there. Another option that you have here under the project, let's see, I think it's under communications. There's driver and OPC. Send every state or send last state. This is a choice on whether or not it buffers up, let's say, quick changes. Maybe you're pressing a button very fast on the screen, or data is changing from somewhere else. You can choose how that gets handled and maybe make your application a little bit more efficient in that way. Also, kind of along the lines of ping, more specifically when you're dealing with some of the database or the web connectivity, use the command netstat. I don't know if this will come up in help. We'll give it a try here. We'll search netstat. Yeah, so when we're looking at thin client applications, it's often good to use the netstat command, because it can tell you what is consuming maybe a port that you want to be using. Pretty important for our web thin clients would be port, or our thin clients in general would be port 80 or port 1234. I have seen some particular webmail programs consume port 80, and some groupware type email programs consume port 80. So this is a way that you can see if there's something conflicting on there as well. Scripting in general. Let's go back to the maybe the scripting. Or else do we have a big script maybe on the recipe report? I believe here under the select. You can right-click and do a check script, and it'll tell you if the syntax is correct. It won't tell you if that script works the way you expect it to, but it'll tell you if the syntax is correct. And if for some reason you leave something out, let's say I'm going to remove a parenthesis there, check the script, it'll tell you, oh, it expected a parenthesis in line 2, and so that'll help try to solve that particular issue. So now I have to try to figure out where I got rid of that. There we go. Also, it's a good idea in scripting to comment. So you can comment with slashes, or I believe in VBScript we can also use a single quote or an apostrophe to comment your code. And trust me on this, going back multiple years, opening an application greater than 10 years old, I found it very helpful that I had documented code and left myself some notes beforehand. And do yourself a favor, do your coworkers a favor, comment your code, and hopefully somebody had commented it for you when you get the chance to open up old code. It's very nice to be able to find notes left in there. So let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. We talked a bit about cross-reference. It's always a good idea to verify your application to help troubleshoot a little bit. If something really doesn't seem like it's working, but it should, try running the verify. Sometimes that will clean up the database. We kind of reset everything, resynchronize everything, and make sure everything's where it should be. So that's something that you can do. Also, it's a good idea to check on the Indusoft website to make sure you have the latest service pack or patch. Service packs and patches within a particular version are free of charge. You can just download those from the Indusoft website. But it's also a good idea to check the revision history of that. We publish that on the website so that you can get at that before you've downloaded a particular version, or it's also available if you've installed it. As far as release notes go, you can check to see is that particular function fixed. So there's a particular list that shows you. And what we've done in this version 7.1 is, after the list of things that we've modified or changed, any known issues and any potential workarounds for those issues are listed in there as well. So that's a feature that you can use. Let's see, what else? Deploying or designing your screens, designing your application. One of the things we did in this training project is we created a multi-screen interface. We created the header at the top, the navigation down the side, and kind of the main work area on the right bottom. That's not necessary to do. You can create a screen or an application that replaces the entire screen all the time, or uses lots of pop-ups to do things a little bit more efficiency. Your choice, but it's a good idea to think of how you're going to design that ahead of time, so you don't have to do a bunch of relaying out and thinking about that process. It's also a good idea to decide on your application resolution. Are you using a widescreen PC to deploy this on versus different aspect ratio? A lot of laptops and desktop computers are coming with wide screens, where industrial PCs are still coming with a 4:3 aspect ratio. So you need to take a look at where you're going to deploy this versus where you're going to develop it. There is a convert resolution feature built into the product that works pretty well, and there's also an auto scale feature. Let's go back into the development environment. Here under the Home tab, you can convert the resolution of the project. Let me close these documents. Oh, another thing that I can point out here, if I have a bunch of tabs open, instead of closing individual ones, I can go up here to this toolbar and say close all, and it will let me save any changes that I've made to those individual screens, but it will close all those tabs in an easy manner. Here under convert resolution, I can change from and to any resolution that I want to, including a custom resolution. So that can be done, but you don't always have to do that. Here under the project viewer icon, you can set auto screen scaling, and that will auto screen scale your runtime application on your main runtime or server. Slightly different from that, if you have deployed a thin client, what you can do here under the web tab, which would be for the web thin client, you can enable auto screen scaling, and that will separately scale the screens on Internet Explorer on the web browser for that. Let's see, what else as far as deploying or designing your application. Something to be aware of: your platform, your runtime platform, and your license that you're using. You can define or design projects for whatever license you have and below. If you outgrow your application, you can upgrade the license in the field. Let's say you've purchased a 1500 tag license and you run through that, you can purchase the next license available, next license higher, which would be the 4000 tag license, and do a field upgrade of that. Some things to think about: if you're designing a touch-only application and you have a virtual keypad, or you might want to enable the virtual keypad here under Viewer, you would enable the virtual keyboard and define what is the default. And then for the individual objects that would need keyboard entry, you can choose which keypad you want to use there. Also, it might be, if it's a touchscreen application, it's probably not a great idea to, on a particular button, let's say, choose right click functionality. If you're just using a touchscreen, that becomes a little bit harder to do with a touchscreen. If you're designing a multi-language application, it's a good idea to plan ahead for real estate for the particular text. In some languages, the text might be longer or shorter than you originally thought, so it's a good idea to plan for that. You might have to change fonts, things of that nature, to get it to fit. And especially for lower-end hardware or embedded hardware, or even Windows CE hardware, it's a good idea to avoid large pasted pictures. If you scale them down just using the development environment by grabbing the handles and making them smaller, that does not necessarily shrink the file size. We do that scaling during runtime, and the files, a lot of large files, pictures, have the possibility of degrading the performance. particular application. So let's talk a little bit about databases. We talked about arrays and classes. It's a great idea for efficiency to use arrays and classes. I mean, very quickly, within just a few mouse clicks, you can create a large number of tags very quickly by combining arrays and classes rather than creating individual tags for all your different items. So let's say, for example, you needed 90 different tags, which might maybe 30 groups of 3. It might be easier to create a class with three elements in it, or 3 members, and then create an array of 30 of those, and then very quickly you have all of those tags created. I mentioned properties before. Easy way to find by using the VB script interface, the alarm limits. It's always a great idea to use descriptions in your properties as well to help things be a little bit more clear as you go along. When you deploy your application, it's a great idea to clear database spy because while you're running your application, this is consuming a little bit of resources. I've had database spy open with these tags in it for almost the last half of this video series. One of the things that I should do before I deploy is select all those lines and delete them. That way it won't consume those resources and be trying to read those tags. So that's a good idea. In a similar fashion, in the output window, one of the things that we can do is not only clear, but in the sorry, that's a cross-reference. In the runtime version of this, disable the logging feature or the save to file feature, because that in the background will be taking up some processor resources as well. Before you deploy your project, it's always a great idea to verify as one of the last things that you do. Do yourself a favor, document your project. Here under the Project tab information, we give you a whole area and then some free-form notes that you can document your project. And it's just a great idea to be able to do that and come back and understand what you were doing at the time. And let's see. Don't forget to make a backup. If you make your project as portable as it can be, when you're using file names and items that are stored maybe in your project folder, by using the get app path command, it'll point to the path of that application or that project, and you can make your project a little bit more portable and easier to archive and back up. That way everything will go with it and be flexible wherever you deploy it then later on. And it's always a great idea when you make backup, make sure you keep revision notes, dates, and maybe even times when you back this up. And it's always a great idea to keep an offsite copy as well. That can help you recover from any disasters. I've heard a great piece of information. There's 2 kinds of people that do regular backups. Those who do it on a regular basis and those who will do it on a regular basis, meaning someday you'll lose a bunch of information and then you'll start making regular backups. That's just a good bit of advice. So hopefully you got a lot out of this video training series, and we appreciate your time and effort for spending this. If you have any feedback, please let us know at info@indusoft.com. And thank you, and have a great day.